should be communicated in writing in a document called addendum. This document can be of a maximum of 2,675 words. Most states adopt the format of a table chart, with the recommendation in the column of the left and the response in the column of the right. This addendum should be sent to the Human Rights Council in advance, preferably 1 month, so that it can be translated into other UN languages and that other stakeholders have time to read it. At the end of the 3.5-hour review, a report of the working group is drafted by the Secretariat of the Human Rights Council with the help of the Troika. This report is a summary of the review containing a summary of all statements, country under review and states, and the list of all recommendations made orally during the review. This report is adopted by the Human Rights Council during one of its plenary sessions a few months after the review. This adoption lasts for 1 hour. The state under review can be represented by someone from the capital or by the permanent representative of the mission in Geneva.
Mr. President, the delegation has taken note and is grateful for all the recommendations made in the course of the review. We'd like to assure you we shall follow up all the recommendations in the spirit in which they were made.
The state under review, states and civil society have each the floor for 20 minutes. The state under review is supposed to bring its final responses to recommendations and answer questions it did not have the time to do so during the review. The report is then adopted by consensus.
After the adoption of the working group report at the Human Rights Council session, starts the follow-up phase. This phase is the most important and critical of the UPR, as it is the one leading to the realization of its goal, the improvement of the human rights situation on the ground. The success of this phase will determine the efficiency and credibility of the UPR process and demonstrate states' engagement in the UPR.
It is the primary responsibility of the state under review to implement the recommendations received during each review. At the next review, states will be questioned on what progress they have made and why they have not implemented the recommendations. According to the Human Rights Council Resolution 1621, the state under review is encouraged to conduct broad consultations with all relevant stakeholders. These include NGOs, national human rights institutions, Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights regional and country offices, UN agencies, media, and parliamentarians. The state under review can establish a committee in charge of monitoring the implementation, made of representatives from different ministries, human rights, justice, interior, etc., and of those stakeholders. At the subsequent review, if the state under review has not implemented recommendations, the Human Rights Council can, according to Resolution 5.1, address cases of persistent non-cooperation with the mechanism.
According to Resolution 1621 of the Human Rights Council, states under review are encouraged to provide midterm updates on the progress made in the implementation of UPR recommendations.
To do this, they can submit a midterm report to the Council 2 or 3 years after the review. Producing a midterm report is an exercise useful for states as it will help them preparing for the next review. They can also provide oral updates to the Human Rights Council. At each Human Rights Council session in March, June and September, the Council holds a general debate on Item 6, dedicated to the UPR. States can use this opportunity to make a brief presentation on the progress made in implementing recommendations such as ratifying a treaty, inviting a special procedure mandate holders, reporting to a treaty body, etc. The UPR is a continuing cycle. It is a perennial mechanism which will continue functioning and reviewing a state's human rights records. Thus, after the implementation in the country, the state under review will come back to Geneva to present the progress made and receive additional recommendations. The modalities and principles will be the same. The state under review should hold national consultations, draft a national report, come back to Geneva to present this report, answer to questions, accept recommendations, and implement them. As the order of the review will always be the same and that the UPR sessions are held regularly, it is already possible to predict which year a state will be reviewed during the third cycle, which will start in 2017. We will now proceed to a test in order to check your understanding of this tutorial. This test contains 10 different questions on the role of the states under review at the UPR process. Some questions only have one response and others have multiple choice responses. Don't worry, results will neither be recorded nor sent to your supervisor. Good luck!